Thank you, Oyemi Ajayi, for the report. And now in the studio to discuss the topic, we have Muhammad Lawal Abubakar. Muhammad Abubakar is the Coordinating Director, Executive Chairman, Group Federal Inland Revenue Service. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good morning.
And we also have with us in the studio Olumide Esan, Head, Tax, Oil and Gas, Deloitte. Good to have you with us this morning.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right. Also here with us in the studios is Dr. Kennedy Iwundu, who is the Vice Chairman of the Chartered Institute of Taxation. Are you the chair or vice?
The chair.
Oh, congratulations. Now the Chairman of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, Abuja District. Dr. Iwundu, Chairman.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, sir.
All right, and also joining us via Zoom from Lagos via Zoom, Professor Ige Bolodoko is the Dean Faculty of Law at the University of Lagos. Prof, we're glad to have you this morning.
Well, I do hope we have the right connection to hear him. I think I had a little from him, and perhaps our engineers will deal with that in the course of the program. But for now, we're back to the studio, and let me also once again welcome all of you to this conversation. Muhammad Lawal Abubakar, you of course, the chief tax collector in Nigeria, if I may say that, and we would like you to address Nigerians on this issue of multiple taxation, which of course we know has been in existence for over the years, and has defied all policies of government in the past 2 decades or thereabout, and it keeps rearing its ugly head, and that affects our economy to a great extent. Now, in your view, is there any multiple taxation in Nigeria, or how would you assess the present tax regime operating in the country?
Thank you very much. Multiple taxation or multiplicity of taxes are most times used interchangeably. But the common thing between them is that you talk about number of taxes existing in the system. And the reason for that is no far-fetched. Going back to memory lane, in the 90s, we witnessed fall in oil revenue. So where the states and the federal local governments were, we had low in the sharing from the oil revenue, and that increased the quest to boost revenue internally by the states, and also giving our fiscal federalism, where the 3 tiers of government also have taxing authority in terms of imposition of some kind of taxes, fee, and levy. So what we witnessed then was states, local government coming in to introduce all sorts of taxes. Sometimes even unauthorized persons will introduce some kind of taxes, and the scenario then was even collection of taxes on the highway, and it gave back to what we have today as taxes and levy approval list of collection acts. It was promulgated during the military as a decree, and that was aimed at sanitizing the system. And the content of it is that you have taxes collectible by each of the 3 tiers of government: federal, state, and local government. For federal government, you not the taxes are so clear, listed in the first schedule of the FRS Establishment Act. They are about 9 or 8 in number, including some earmark taxes like third phone, NITDA, and recently we have Naseni tax. We fought effort to against introduction of other earmark taxes recently, there was to be NYC trust fund. It wasn't signed into law. So what we're saying is that as we said earlier, the quest for state to boost revenue gave rise to what we are witnessing today. And to sanitize the situation, as I said, the taxes and levy approved list of collection as was to do that. And but what you see even in that act is the portion for local governments, for example, is a constitutional provision. The fourth schedule of the 1999 Constitution listed out duties in form of tax, in form of administration of fees and levy by the local government. They are about 20 in number. And then those under the states, we have 36 or 37 tax authorities today. 36 states plus FCTRS, 37 plus FRS. Each of these tax authorities has their distinct tax laws. So you are talking about 38 tax administration laws in the country. If you move from one state to another, the laws are different. You expect that you should have a common tax law that will address all the tax issues, but that's not what we see today.
All right, ML Abubakar, thank you very much for your initial intervention. We'll return to you in the course of the conversation. Let's go back to Professor Bolodoku, where we saw him pop up on the screen a while ago, and we hope that engineers have resolved the audio issue. Professor Ige Bolodoku, well, let's begin with you by getting more conceptual clarification. When we say, as the president complained about in this inaugural address, the multiple taxes, what is it that we are concerned about, and how is that distinct or different from double taxation?
Well, thank you very much. Indeed, when we talk about multiple taxation, what it simply means is that there is a multiplicity of taxes or tax laws that are enforceable. And a variant of it is also a duplicity of tax laws. They are different, but they are accommodated in the phrase multiple taxations. When you duplicate the tax basis of a particular legislation and you impose it on people, you are duplicating exactly what others are paying for, and that is perhaps illegal. But what has happened is just a series of legislation on tax, on tax laws that are being enforced. Those are not necessarily illegal. They may not be expedient, because there is a difference between legality and expediency, and we need to put it in a constitutional context and our political environments as well. First, when you talk about taxation, it is an area that is regulated strictly by the Constitution. You must have a taxing power to impose tax because it is an expropriatory act or exercise, and you cannot deny people of their private property without an authority from the Constitution. Now, when you look at Section 4 of our Constitution, the federal or the federation is given powers to make or enact laws for the good order and governance of Nigeria. Also, similar powers are vested in states. Then we have two sets of lists in our Constitution: the exclusive list and the concurrent list. Well, we've talked about the residual, but I will get to that quickly. Now, what will happen is that it is only the federal government that may legislate on any of those items in the exclusive list, and you have about 68 of them. Now, for the concurrent list, both the state and the federal shares, but as you know, where there are similar laws in the concurrent list, the federal one we override. Okay, and then what happens is this: the Constitution imposes or perhaps empowers states and the federal to make laws. The making of laws includes the power to make laws or to make tax laws, the power to make tax laws. Now, so what that means is that for all the items in the exclusive list, the federal government has the power to make laws, including tax laws on any of those items. The government may not exercise this power because, as I noted, what is legal is not necessarily expedient. Now, for the states that operate mostly on the residual powers that they have, I mean, whatever is not listed in the exclusive list is deemed to be liable to states to legislate on any of those items. So the power of the states to legislate, in assertion of their residual powers is about their creativity. If the state is creative enough, it can really legislate on any aspect that it deems necessary, and it will be legal. Now, so this is where we have issues of duplicity or multiplicity. And as I noted, multiplicity is not necessarily illegal. And this is because if it is traceable to law and can be accommodated within the confines of the powers that are given to either the state or the federal government, then it is legitimate for them to do so. Now, whether or not you exercise this will depend on the overall or the overarching considerations. What are these laws meant for? To raise money, to discharge responsibilities of government. Now, what is the template of that as we have it in the country? We know that as it is, the political component of it is that both the state and the federal share, the revenue monthly. And what it means is that most of these states, are not self-sustaining, even with the amount of money they receive from the federal. So you look at the percentages of distribution, and to the one that goes to the federal and those that goes to the state. So if they are if they cannot run government for so many reasons, that would be, then there is that temptation to begin to get creative and be imposing as many tax laws as possible and then enforcing it on the people. If that will affect business, that will affect virtually everything. Now, there are so many considerations too. Even the little that the state, arguably receives from the federal, how are they expended? If they are not properly expended, then there will be drive to raise more IGR. And then this is where we get into the multiplicity issue. And then it goes on. There are some that are clearly illegal because if the state, for instance, in the manufacturing sector, if the state were to enact laws, that really affects any of the items that the federal government has legislated, it will be illegitimate, it will be illegal, null and void. So whether those are enforced or whether there's a challenge will depend on the awareness, understanding of the relationships of the powers that the states and the federal government has. And if there is no opportunity or if there is no knowledge to enforce or challenge, so those laws will stay. But thank you.
Thank you indeed for your contribution. And that, of course, opened up a lot of things, a lot of questions, for us to further digest. Multiple taxation, not necessarily illegal. We need further explanation of that for those of you who have better understanding of what he said. The duplicity of tax laws. So these are some of the issues that he raised in this conversation. And then double taxation. So we are beginning to see different versions of or perspectives of taxation and all that. We also have fees, levy, duties, a number of fees, NAFDAC fees, a great deal of them, along the line of production. And again, as he mentioned, it touches on the production process and affects output. Now, let's bring you in, Dr. Kennedy Iwundu, Chairman, Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria. What is your reading of the tax regime we are currently operating, considering all the points that the two speakers, have highlighted?
Okay, thank you very much. Professor has been able to give us a theoretical view, a conceptual view about double taxation and multiple taxation, but I'm going to bring it into practicality because I'm into practice. When we talk about double taxation, it means you are taxing a profit or an income twice. But when you talk about multiple taxation, you are taxing a profit or income more than twice. For example, let me give you an example of double taxation. States, some states are collecting consumption tax from hotels, from eateries, from restaurants. And federal is also collecting VAT. In the conceptual view of VAT, VAT is consumption tax. You see the federal government collecting VAT from a hotel in a state through FIRS. The State Internal Revenue Service collecting consumption tax from the same hotel. It's double. It's double taxation. So in that case, there should be an arrangement where one person will stop. But the states say, if you look at the Constitution of Nigeria, that they are responsible to collect consumption tax, not the federal. But we know that the issue of VAT is in court, because the High Court ruled that the state is responsible to collect VAT, not the federal government. So we are still waiting for the Supreme Court to give us a verdict on that.
To collect or to impose?
To collect, if you are imposing, it's not about imposition, it's about collection. We're looking at collection.
Because the power to impose is different from the power to collect.
Yes, it's collection. We're looking at collection. Because the argument the states, like the River State government gave, that if you look at the exclusive list, there's no VAT listed there. So anything not listed in the exclusive list is automatically a residual.
Yeah, that's a good argument, if you ask me.
So we're waiting for the Supreme Court to come up to say we're upholding this judgment, or we are thinking differently. So what are we saying? You go to some states today, the state government is collecting consumption tax from eateries, from hotels, and the federal government is also collecting VAT. It's double taxation. Then let's look at multiple taxation. As I said, multiple taxation happens when you tax more than twice. For example, in Nigeria today, we prepare accounts for our clients, file their returns. Some of our clients, on their profit, pay company income tax. On their profit, pay education tax, that's state fund. On their profit, pay NIDA. On their profit, pay NASENI. On their profit, pay police levy. My colleague here said that they even stopped one, which is NYSC levy. So you can see one profit facing multiple taxes. They are all legal according to professor, because you can't tax people without law. There must be a legal instrument that will enable you to tax people. So I don't know whether the president wants to begin to either exempt, for him to eliminate multiple taxation, either he use instrument of finance to exempt companies or to repeal some of those laws. I don't know how, because these are a lawmaking process. It's not something you can eliminate through executive fiat or executive order. And even more taxes are coming, safe, because there are some people who are proposing more taxes on the same profit of companies because of exigency to fund some sectors. Remember that the tax fund was like, we need to have intervention fund in the education sector. We brought in tax fund. Need that, the same thing. NASENI, the same thing. Police need funding. They brought police levy. So you can see, because of the need to fund certain sectors, laws are being made to collect a portion of, even if it's 1%, even if it's 2%, from, just like education tax, we started it with 2%, and they said they're doing very well. At least they're utilizing the money well. We move to 2.5%. Then the new Finance Act now has moved it to 3%. And we won't be surprised if we will be heading to 4 or 5% tomorrow. So that's the reality. So now, what gave rise to this multiplicity of taxes, or so many taxes and levies, that we used to have taxes and levies approved list for collection, where there are list of taxes for the federal government, list of taxes and levies for the state, list of taxes and levies, list of levies and fines for the local government. Now, if you come to each, you can see federal government through FIRS have about 8 or 9 taxes to collect. The state has more than 10. The local government has, I don't know, their own reach like 15. So you can see the long list. So that taxes and levies approval of collection was nullified by the Court of Appeal. But despite the nullification by the Court of Appeal, the 3 tiers of government are still taxing in line with the list given to them. Now, I feel that we should have a common way of trying to harmonize the list.
Okay, Dr. Iwudu, we'll come to that. I want to bring in Olumide Eson.
Yeah.
But when was the nullification of that list of collection by the Court of Appeal? And is there a further appeal to the Supreme Court of that matter, if you're aware?
No, they didn't go back to the Supreme Court. It didn't go. So I know, and it's status, but because if you don't go to Supreme Court again,
within a time.
Exactly. Yes.
So when did this happen? Recently? Or
No, that happened about 2 or 3 years ago.
Oh,
So,
okay, that's fine. So we'll pause you. Olumide Eson, let's bring you in here. Maybe also from the practical point of view, because when you enter some shops, local, that's just local shops in the local markets, you will see photocopies of all kinds of receipts that are stapled on the or sellotaped on the doors, and you try to read them. You are seeing something area council, let's say in Abuja here, area council, all kinds of receipts that people are getting. Are these the kind of things that we're also concerned about in having a conversation around multiple taxation? Who is doing what? Is it just now an all-commerce affair that, look, federal will come collect, state will come collect, area council, local government will come and collect, and then the people who are at the receiving end are crying and nobody's listening to them? Is that what we are dealing with?
Thank you. So if you permit me, let me just go back a little bit history. So we are enjoying democracy, and because we have a federal constitution, that in itself, it's part of the problem. During the military era, that particular decree was decreed because the constitution was suspended. So military can decide who collects what and when. But we're back to the federal constitution, and so anything not listed on the exclusive list, it's either in concurrent or maybe you call it residual list. So which means that the different subnationals can collect different types of taxes. What has led them and led us to where we are today, it's paucity of funds. And because it has continued to deteriorate. Some 20 years back, this country used to produce like 2.5 million barrels of oil a day. Today we are doing half. So 20 years back, the population of this country was half of what today. If you look at that, that is a multiple of 4. So that means everyone that was getting $4, for example, 20 years ago per head is now getting $1. So the states, the local governments are desperate. Now, linking it to, so they needed to raise funds. I would always say about double taxation that it's when you have the incident of tax on a particular income twice. And oftentimes we use it within the framework of international taxation. So you have an income that is being taxed in Nigeria, again being taxed in another country. And that is why we have the treaty networks. But for multiplicity of taxes, first we need to agree what is a tax. It's any take by government without service. That is basically tax. So that is why we classify both levies, and taxes together. If you look at the way Nigeria is right now, if you ask the shop woman, how much do you pay in tax? He or she is going to list maybe like 60 different taxes. Recently I saw a document I was reviewing in the oil industry, and I saw that they have about 40 different types of taxes and levies. From the one we know, which is federally collected by the FRS, which of course are PPT, CIT, education, TET, VAT, stamp duty, and the rest. They have a litany collected by states, radio, van, and then we have the one collected by agencies, NCD, NDDC, NIMASA, Cabotage, everyone, NESS. You have that retinue. So, in fact, they coined the word government take because I think it's now beyond tax. Now say, okay, what exactly is government taking from us? So they call it government take when you aggregate all these taxes together. The reality is this: the Constitution, and I like the way it's been presented by both Prof and ML, does not limit, to be honest, what the subnationals can do. However, we must ask ourselves the question: what do the investors, what do they think? What do the business people, what do they think? They think they're overtaxed. having, multiple of taxes does not necessarily mean that the tax rate of effective tax rate is so high. It is just the mannerism and the way it's being executed. Some are civil, as the FRS writes you, a query, you respond, you can have very civil conversation. Some on the road, they just, throw that thing to stop your car to collect theirs. So the challenge is we must first, streamline these laws and we must harmonize them. That can only be a joint up approach to, mitigating the impact of this multiple taxation on businesses. I think all the governments, federal, state and local, they want businesses to thrive, because when businesses thrive, more people will be employed. That will mean less crime, and that will mean more revenue, because people that are employed will pay taxes. Now the question is, how do we make this work? The people who are paying these taxes are complaining about the tax burden. When we talk about the tax burden, it's not just about paying the tax itself, it is the administration. They need to file returns in multiple jurisdictions on each of these. They need to obtain receipts, obtain permits, paste it on their cars, and you've had nasty experiences by business owners in this country. And until we all agree, and the good thing is that we all know there's a problem. FRS has been at the forefront of trying to encourage unification of this, and I like the statement by our president. He said they will look into it, because it must be looked into. It is discouraging for business owners. And of course, it breaches one of the, the basic principles of taxation, which is certainty, because you don't even know which one is coming tomorrow.
Exactly.
Another local governments, I won't be surprised if tomorrow wards are starting to levy their own taxes. So you have that list that has been on the trajectory of Northeast. It's just been growing. Go and look at the graph from 1999, we came back to democracy. It has only been increasing, it hasn't decreased. And I found something very strange. Every single, legislation that we find now, establishing a new agency, always have the funding part of it, and it is always a form of tax. Instead of for it to strictly just say it shall be appropriated from the, federation account, it's always tying it either to the manufacturers or the oil producers or the service sector. Everybody imposing new taxes. It does not help business. Now, when people are assessing the ease of doing business, they're not just looking at the, the financial cost. They're looking at the stress that comes with compliance in this part of the world. He is a practitioner in practitioner. I can tell you it's a lot of burden for business owners in Nigeria.
Okay. All right, thank you. Indeed, we'll leave it there as some for that analysis. And we will return to Mohammed Lawal Abubakar once more. Before now, FIRS was not an agency that was relied upon by government until we had one Ifweko Omoigui Okauru at the point when the reform of FIRS took place. I was privileged to do some documentaries on that reform, and all she did at the National Assembly, to bring back FIRS to where it should be. And since then, we're beginning to see that FIRS has, of course, blossomed in terms of its operation. Now, in Abuja here, we also have FCTIRS. When we're talking about multiple taxation, for instance, you have a FIRS, the Federal Inland Revenue Service. Now have a FCT Revenue Service. Some persons who do business in Abuja here, some of them pay to FCT IRS, and some pay to the. So let's see where do we have the demarcation, where do you have the divorce between these two, because these are the reasons why we keep having multiple taxation. And in terms of harmonization, what role should you play? Because of course you are the apex tax collection agency in Nigeria. Where would this harmonization come from? How possible is it to harmonize the tax laws to ensure that multiplicity or duplicity or double taxation and all that will be eliminated?
Thank you for that question. In 2004, when Madam Ifeoko was appointed as Executive Chairman of Federal Inland Revenue Service, the collection then was within the region of 500 to 800 billion naira per annum. We crossed trillion in 2005. We made the first trillion in collection in that 2005, and that shows that the effect
Of the reform.
of the reform was positive. And she also came in with integration of tax administration, and from area tax offices we have ITOs, what we call ITO, integrated tax offices, and it's all about harmonization, you know, to have one-stop shop as far as assessment, collection, and accounting for taxes are concerned. Rather than, before then you have value-added tax offices operating separately from the regular income tax offices. But that reform gave back to what we have today, integration of tax administration. And it also has to do with, okay, talking about harmonization, the effort to harmonize continue from then up to today. And recently we saw the Finance Act 2021 that gave taxing rights to federal inland revenue as far as federal taxes are concerned. That is to say, bringing all collection of these taxes under one umbrella. But how effective that has been is another question. We see agencies on their own trying to introduce some kind of taxes. And it's not just about introduction or collection, but utilization. You know, they've been appropriated for in the budget, yet they collect these taxes, and most time they are to utilize, you know, in their operations. So the question of harmonization, as your questions, I mean, the answer to that question is a continuous one, and it's not just by FRS, even at the state level, because as we have observed here, the Federal Inland Revenue Service tax operation is clean to some extent, but going down to state and federal, that is, I mean, and local government, that's why you witness.
Sir,
yes.
just to amplify this, you have Federal Inland Revenue Services, all the states of the Federation.
Yes.
Which tax are they collecting there? Because we also have state IFRS.
Yeah.
Like I explained, we have FCT IRS,
yeah,
and then Federal Inland Revenue operating in the federal capital city.
Okay,
you have offices in all the states of Nigeria. Now you are collecting federal tax in states, and states also collecting state tax on the same states, on the same businessmen, on the same society. So I don't know.
Okay, the explanation to that has to do probably with the personal income tax. The FCTRS, for example, would administer taxes of the personal income tax in respect of people residents in FCT. The Federal Inland Revenue Service, before the creation of FCT, was collecting taxes, personal income tax in respect of people or individual residents in FCT. So, but with the coming of FCTRS, that task has been shifted to them, and they administer only for residents of Abuja, excluding members of the armed forces and police and officers in the foreign service. So the presence of FRS across the state is to collect taxes that belong to federal government.
How do we know those taxes? That's what Nigerians would like to know.
Company income tax, for example. Company income tax, no state internal revenue service will assess for company income tax. They can only do that for individuals and maybe enterprises that are not limited by liability.
All right, Abubakar, excuse me. Thank you very much there for your explanation. I want to return to Professor Ike Bolodoku. There are a number of issues on the table right now, just like a platter of fruits that we have on our table. Perhaps we can also get you to help us unpack them and why they are so. Olumide raised a very significant point, just like all the other guests have also, and including yourself, raised very significant issues, that there appears now to be almost no, let me get, I'm trying to get the right adjective for it. Well, there is a drafting technique now in lawmaking at the National Assembly that when you want to create any agency and you are looking for funding, you just insert a clause that funding for this shall be from that. Are we not advising ourselves properly? That's to say the lawmakers to avoid that because of the impact on multiple taxation and therefore on businesses. Then the multiplicity of taxes that we're talking about at the state level, local governments, and perhaps cross-purposing with the federal government, what has been the role of the Joint Tax Board?
Thank you very much. I think at the end of the day, the Joint Tax Board is actually expected to really infuse some orderliness into the administration of tax laws. Now, and as I said, it depends on the political will to enforce existing laws, to have clear policy of administration or tax administration consistently with the tax policy of 2017. Because paragraph or section 4 of that policy also lays out the approach that we should have to efficient tax administration. Because as someone mentioned, there is an issue of multiplicity of tax laws and the burden of it. If the administration is not streamlined, then the payers will feel the burden much more, even worse than they feel for the tax that is payable on its own. So what we need to do really is to examine all of these laws, how they may be administered, and one of it is through collection. And what is the methodology that is really, the most efficient that can bring in some sanity into to administration of taxes in Nigeria. And there are so many steps that may be taken to ensure that is done. Bear in mind that it all comes down to the political will. If the overarching objective is to make tax or tax payment, much easier for people, or to lessen the burden of taxes, then there is a need to review existing laws, existing tax laws, and then come to a conclusion about some steps that we need to, because it's not about tax alone. Something is driving, there is a driving force for this multiple taxation. And that driving force is traceable to the fact that the revenue of the federal government is not what it used to be. If what we had about oil theft is correct, then, and of course, the amount of money that we lose to other bodies that are not legitimate, then of course you know that that burden drives the need for more taxation, because government will still want to meet its responsibility, and it has to be from some funds, from some revenue. Where is those revenues to come from? It's either from the money you have or the one you can borrow, and this is also what is funding the issue of deficit. So again, the attitude of our governors in the various states, they also need to sit up. There has to be a stakeholders and a conference on this particular issue. The commitment of all the levels of government, and tiers of government, in terms of what is best for society, for business, for economy, for investment and environment, and then take steps to do it. When state governments take on projects that are not viable economically, regardless of what the feasibility study says, then there's going to be a problem for the state down the road and for every employee of that government. And that is what we see unraveling every day in our face. So when you embark on, on financing projects that are not really, doable, and you resort to the capital market to raise bonds and all of that, and at the end of the day, there is no control over how these funds are dispensed. You have run the state into problems. So those are the drivers that we have for multiple. But then, if we are able to streamline our taxes and collection is efficient, perhaps we'll find that, and of course we ensure that we don't lose the overarching source of revenue in the country, you may find out that at the end of the day, perhaps maybe, the test for revenue and the creativity that has come with it will help. And that will be for the good governance of the Federation. But until we are able to do that with concerted effort, with commitment, there will be more creativity on the part of those who have the power to do so. And there will continue to be problems, more taxation, more levies, and all of that, by bringing in some chaos into the system. It is doable, I believe, and by the political will, the commitment, the bottom line for building our business environment, investment environment, we must understand it. If it is tied to the SMEs and business activities, then we must ensure that we allow those businesses to strive in our society, to invite them into our economy, and then let them do what is, and then the other tasks that are payable by them, they will do. But what is necessary for us to do is to ensure that we manage properly our resources. But we should really be very concerned about resources and management.
Thank you, Prof. I think the takeaway here for me and perhaps other Nigerians could be the political will, that you mentioned, consistently, in your submission, which is of course key. In this country, we don't have issues with identifying challenges, but of course the mechanics of dealing with the challenge has always been the issue. You talked about examining all the laws in order to achieve harmonization. Who is going to do that? You also talked about the infusion of orderliness and all that. And now my colleague raised the issue of the role of joint tax board. By the name alone, joint tax board, meaning that everybody concerned, all institutions concerned about tax in Nigeria have a board where they all have a seat. So what happens? Now we're talking about harmonization, Dr. Iwundu. What do you think? What metrics we put in place to see how this harmonization can take place? And particularly talk about the role of the joint tax board.
Yeah, my guy here have talked about the joint tax board before. The role of the joint tax board is just the harmonization. Formally, you can see if you go to a state, they'll be doing things differently from another state. You see different taxes, different ways of doing things from about 36 states of the Federation, including the FCT. But the essence of the joint tax board is to harmonize, because they meet. When they meet, they say, let us do something in uniformity, in unison. The tax rate based on the law are the same. Personal income tax. Remember, in joint tax board, FRS is the chairman of the joint tax board, and all the 36 states have representatives. So there is just like, let's have a harmony whereby we do the same thing. But recently we discovered it doesn't work that way, because sometimes you go to some states to apply for personal tax clearance certificate. The procedure is different from another state. So I was even asking, last time I was going to Ondo for a tax program, I was asking them, so why different states not working in unison? And you meet. So the essence of meeting is to ensure that you have that uniformity in operation. And that's why we have the joint tax board. Now, for example, there's what we call JTB, Joint Tax Board Tax Identification Number. That TIN, I don't know how effective that TIN is. The essence of that TIN is to have a unique TIN that everybody in Nigeria, as far as we are paying personal income tax, can use. It's a unique TIN. And that TIN is also transferable in terms that you're in Abuja, but you are transferred to Lagos. You can still go with your TIN and continue. So the TIN will have a tax history. You don't need to go to Lagos and start creating a new TIN. So I don't know how effective the joint tax board TIN is. But the essence of the joint tax board is to have that harmonization. And in course of harmonization, you're only harmonizing the laws. You're not bringing any new law. You can only harmonize the existing laws. So in harmonizing that law, those laws, the joint tax has no power to say, let's eliminate taxes or let's reduce them. They're still going to harmonize the laws based on the existing laws we have.
Okay, Dr. Iwundu, thank you very much. Because the issue of harmonization is critical, and happily, ML Abubakar has been in the system for quite a while. So this explanation might take some time, but we'll go on a short break. And when we return from that break, he will of course, be in a position to tell us why there appears to be no succor, as it were, from the activities of the Joint Tax Board.
You have to move from the point where you protect and defend your religion to a point where you also recognize the rights of the other person, of the other religion, and protect it. So if I am protecting my own territory and my own people and trying to emphasize their rights and protect their rights, I should also be thinking about how to protect the rights of the others.
Both Islam and Christianity recognize and defer to God, and both recognize the temporariness of the life of this world, and that ultimately we all go back to God for the day of reckoning, when everybody will render an account of his life on this temporary abode.
Your skill is key to your professional growth in the competitive broadcast media industry. Take advantage of the following programs specially packaged by NTA Television College Jos to upgrade your skill. Marketing in the era of digital broadcast. Date 13th June to 23rd June 2023, 2 weeks. Drama production workshop. Date 3rd July to 21st July 2023, 3 weeks. Intermediate online news reporting skills. Date 24th July to 11th August 2023, 3 weeks. The course fee for the 2-week course is 120,000 naira, while the fee for the 3-week course is 150,000 naira only. Accommodation inclusive. All courses will hold at NTA Television College near Old Government House, Rayfield, Jos. For further inquiries, please call 0803-079-5335 or 0806-980-9807. NTA Television College, Jos, training you to be the best you want to be. Registrar Announcer.
We shall defend the nation from terror and all form of criminality that threaten the peace and stability of our country. We shall remodel our economy to bring our growth and develop the GDP much better than we have today. I assure you. Do that through job creation, food security, and an end to extreme poverty.
You're welcome back, and still Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. So we'll go back to ML Abubakar, who himself was at the Joint Tax Board. ML Abubakar, what is happening with the Joint Tax Board in terms of responding to the slate of issues that you gentlemen have raised on multiple taxes and the pain that businesses are having to suffer?
Okay. The Section 86 of Personal Income Tax Act provided for creation of Joint Tax Board. And Joint Tax Board is just, sometimes they call it association of various state revenue agencies, recently including the FCT, and the chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service doubles as the chairman of the Joint Tax Board. One key function of the Joint Tax Board is to ensure or enhance uniformity of administration of taxes in the country. So one thing we should be looking at is when you talk of harmonization, is it to harmonize taxes or to harmonize tax administration? They mean two different things. You know, harmonizing taxes would be to say, okay, in a particular jurisdiction, at the states and local government, let's let the two organs of government come together and make the list of taxes administered at that level, you know, fewer. If you have, for example, state government collecting CO4, for example, fee, ground rent, consent fee, tenement rate, and they are replicated at the local government level. Then you begin to see multiplicity of taxes. And they all relate to one entity or individual. If you hold instrument, the title for land, for example, in a particular state, you are supposed to have from beginning local government CFO, and then you also have state CFO. So what the JTB tried to do in that direction is to encourage the state to harmonize such taxes under one umbrella, and then they fashion out sharing formula among the two bodies. One other thing that JTB is doing is to create a common tax payer database, and that's when the youth team was introduced, taxpayer identification number, and it was to create a system where if you move from any state, you are uniquely identified to avoid you being liable to tax in more than one state, because that is against the principle of taxation. An individual should not pay, for example, the personal income tax, you should not pay more than one taxing authority. So gradually we move to partnering with other agencies of government. The NIMC, for example, that register people and issue them with a NIN, National Identity Number. Then the BVN also came in place, managed by NIMC, the Nigerian.
No, BVN is by the central bank. That's
BVN by the banking sector, yes. Yeah. Okay. So what all the three agencies, that Joint Tax Board, NIMC, and the CBN, to bring these three items together and for the JTB to leverage on. We know very well that your BVN is not transferable, and if all individuals that have BVN, it means they also have a bank account. So rather than going after people for identification, you leverage, to identify people for tax, you leverage on the BVN. So there is effort to have that proper handshake between the tax authorities and the bank, for example. And what that is aimed at is, at the end of the day, we want to see a situation whereby either the BVN or NIN will be used for tax purposes, since the TIN, taxpayer identification number, hasn't been so effective. And recently too, the Joint Tax Board has initiated what's it called, data for tax initiative. That is to say, they will leverage on the NIN, BVN, to be able to identify individuals.
Okay, Dr. Olumide, so keying in from what he has said, we're all looking at the harmonization of taxes. And he now separated harmonization of taxes and harmonization of tax administration. I don't know what you understand by that, because we were talking about the functions of the JTB. We were not seeing results in the sense that he was talking about multiplicity of taxation. And we're talking about joint JTB, which should, of course, come in with the harmonization. So where are we here? Do a more critic of JTB and its functions. Is it making impact, or is it just an association, as is pointed out, of tax institutions in Nigeria? Are they making any impact with respect to eliminating completely multiplicity of taxes in the country?
Thank you for that question. Let me start by saying that tackling the issue of multiplicity of taxes, it's going to be a journey. Okay, so it will never be accomplished overnight. As JTB made progress, yes. Is it at the speed we would have loved? Maybe not. The reality is, as you also have alluded to and he said, it's at best an association. It's a creation of a federal law, right? You can't, there's a limit to which you can push participants. However, there is the room for moral suasion on the part of the federal government. I've always said this, if you make someone see the reason why he needs to do something, he will do it willingly. There is the issue of trust deficit between the federal and the state as well. And also, you know, trust is also unfortunately not built overnight. I think that it's easier to start with harmonizing tax administration, you know, before going to harmonize taxes, because there will be a lot of noise around harmonizing taxes. Which ones should go? Assuming that the five of us here represent different agencies within the state. Whose taxes should be dropped? Whose should not be dropped? So harmonizing the taxes itself could be a very, you know, loud one. But the administration is very clear. A lot of countries around the world, you have just one agency that is responsible for collection.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
does it require legislation to effect harmonization of taxes? Does it require legislation to do that? Because something has to go.
Yes.
Under a unitary system of government, would that be easier?
Under unitary, it's easier. I mean, when we had the military regime and we had that miscellaneous taxes, you know, I mean, it was clear, you know, each time it's, you know, the military releases, everybody, you know, falls around. I mean, until that list of approval areas was nullified a few years ago, it was law. Exactly. But then it shouldn't have been law in the first instance because it was a military creation. So during the military era, when the constitution was suspended, it was valid. Now, it may require a tweak to the constitution, and you know what that means if you need to tweak the constitution to accommodate this. So at best, in my view, it's you need to sell a product to the states to buy this. And to be honest, like he alluded to, it's not about the state tax chairman. It's first selling it to the governors to buy in and know that this is in the best interest of the state. And in fact, by not doing that, a lot of the states are missing out. Do you know what it means to have a unified software that a lot of the states are using? That will be increased efficiency of collection. So if you know that it's just, for example, one gateway to pay in Ondo State, for example, whether, you know, that's, let's say for assume you have not harmonized the taxes, or you have several taxes, let's say you have 8 different ones, road, windscreen, radio, and all of that. If there's just one gateway that you log on into, number one, it's already providing data for the state. Exactly. With data analytics, they can see where exactly am I getting the most of the income, you know, and then they're able to track the usage of those funds. So administration is in the best interest of the state because then, you know, there's a lot of transparency. People see what you are collecting, and you know, not many people can steal those monies. So we start with harmonization of the administration because that one is easy to accomplish, to be honest. FCT, IRS, FRS in the same city, it could have been cheaper for FRS to do collection because they've been in the business for long and they have the mechanism. After all, they collect VAT across the 30 states of the federation, right? And they have a way of allocating what belongs to each state from that collection. That is where we should focus on. And you know what? Big data. Technology is there to assist with this. But of course, you know, as it is with technology, there will be upfront investments, but which will yield much greater returns over the years. But what is most important, in an association, you must have willing participants. And that is where we have struggled. When you know, consider the mutual suspicion and trust deficit that we have, you know, in the nation. So I think that JTB is making progress, but, you know, not at the pace that we all would love it to be. And the only way we can have that is when the JTB have the buying of the state governors, because the governors, you know, control their states. Exactly. If the state chairman of the Inland Revenue Service sees the body language of the governor, that the governor is on this, each time he has a meeting with the governor, asking, what progress have you guys made in respect of the digitalization project at the JTB level? It makes it a mandate for each of those state revenue services, inland, you know, to support what JTB is doing and to have, you know, common front. Because at the end of the day, when an investor, when a foreigner comes to this country, does not see Lagos State, does not see Ogun State, It just says, look, that country is just a plethora of taxes everywhere you go, and what is even most annoying to a lot of them is actually the administration. The rate, some of the rates are ridiculous. 0. You know, I mean, the police levy that hasn't been collected by FRS is 0.005. I mean, so sometimes it's not really about the rate, but it's the nuisance value of having to do separate compliance, separate filing for each of those states. If you have a multinational that's operating in this country and has branches in 7 different states, you don't want to imagine, sometimes they need an army of tax advisors, accountants, or even use an external you know, consulting firm like ours to help them to be able to just comply with the rules around those taxes.
And that isn't good for ease of business.
No, it's not. It's not good for business.
Another related issue to the ease of business is as follows. There are regulatory agencies. If you have dealings with those agencies, maybe you are a producer or you render service, you might refer to these as hidden taxes. You'll be required to pay registration. You require our application fees, and then registration fees, renewal, and so on and so forth. Who controls this? Are they just arbitrary items like NAFDAC, for instance? All kinds of fees and levies that producers pay, whether if you are in the food and beverage business, you are in the drug manufacturing business, you have to register it, and so people will be flaunting their NAFDAC approved number. You pay for that number. And I'm saying it's not only NAFDAC, there are a number of other agencies. What is the experience of business persons in all of these hidden taxes?
Okay, so the truth of the matter is that these agencies were set up to be revenue generating agencies. That's just the problem. I could remember some of our clients who come, they want to get ITF, Industrial Training Fund Certificate. They will charge them 1% of the total salaries and wages annually. Without it, you can't get the certificate. And that one will come, want to get an SITF. They also have to charge them some money before they get an SITF. And that one will come, they want to get a BPP or PENCOM. Of course, you have to show that you have complied in making sure that the pension of your staff, contributory pension, the insurance, group life insurance, everything is paid. So what government is doing is that government want to make almost every agency a revenue generating agency. That is just a summary of it. So is
that healthy?
It's not healthy. That's what I'm saying. Because when we talk about investments, some investors, before they invest money, whether you're a local investor or a foreign investor, sometimes they hire some of us to do feasibility study. Say, I want to invest money into this country. Can you x-ray all the taxes, levies, regulatory framework? By the time we finish our work and hand over to them, some of them will withdraw. They won't invest again. And beyond the taxes and levies, you also have infrastructural deficit in the country, where you don't have steady power supply, a lot of money is going on diesel, the roads are bad, and all that. I feel beyond fighting that these taxes and levies should be reduced, government should also step up its game to put infrastructures in order. Because just as he said, there's a trust deficit. Some people may not be angry that they are paying so much, but they may say, we are not even seeing the effect of the taxes we are paying. We pay this, we pay that, we pay this, but we're not seeing it. You can't have a security problem and like it's US or UK there, 911 or 999, police will come to your door. You don't have steady power supply. So many companies have decided to close operation because they can't afford to continue to run diesel. So beyond paying these taxes, I think most of the complaints some of our clients are saying, some of them feel their pulse when they come to my office, that these taxes we are paying, what is government doing with the money?
Accountability.
Accountability.
So that trust needs to be there, because even if you are paying so much, but you can see how this money is being used, you don't mind if they continue to tax you here and there. So just as he said, the administration of taxes is not well organized in the country. We want to see a situation, all of them will be streamlined. Streamlined in a way, you can even say, on all these taxes, just pay 40% here or 30% here, pay 10% here. And everything is done. But where you bring because almost every agency, the government has structured almost every agency in Nigeria to be a revenue generating agency. So if you are approaching any agency for any service, you have to pay tax. You have to pay something in that agency.
Okay, well, you said that doesn't all go well for the economy, from what I can understand. Let's go to Professor Bolodeku once more. You see, we have seen multiplicity of that. Let me just name them, but so we can, and Nigerians will have clearer idea of what we're talking about. Taxes, we have no more taxes. Fees, levies, custom duties, NAFDAC, NIDA, NASENE, police levy, NYS levy, VAT, education fee. It's endless. There are many more that we could mention, and that is the reason why we're here this morning discussing how to reduce, if not eliminate, multiple taxation. No matter the perspective that we have all postulated this morning, the bottom line is that the nation is overtaxed, and that is why we're not having a lot of good businesses springing up, or even the ones that have been existing being sustained reasonably. Now, as your final thought on this matter, which way forward with respect to harmonization? Should we have a legislation for it? You're a lawyer. Should we go to National Assembly to deal with all these matters?
Well, thank you very much. Well, in terms of harmonization and legislation issue, now as has been made clear by the contributors, before you can harmonize, are you harmonized what is the same? Are you harmonized what is different? Now, as between the states, if the laws are different, how do you harmonize laws without convincing some of the states to drop the laws they have made? And if they believe they genuinely need it for the development of their states, it's going to be very difficult for them to drop some for harmonization's sake. But the easier one to do is the administration. You can harmonize administration. And that, to me, would also happen at the state levels. If at the discussion, at the JTB, it is clear that there are confusion and there are plethora of forces that are collecting taxes and so many taxes, the state still should have some powers to rein all of those things in at the state level, or meet with the various local governments and agree on what to do. And in so doing, there could be laws that are made within the state for harmonization to happen. If that is achieved by the respective states through, this kind of discussion in the JTB, and then the governors are also given a buy-in, I think they can lead legislation to ensure that this is possible and that it will be done. Now, that is about administration and the issue of organization, just to reduce the cost of doing business and even the burden that comes with really investing in Nigeria. Now, the larger issue is this multiplicity of laws. How do we get rid of it? Or at least how do we ensure that we are not overtaxed as a country? I want to say that we are collecting taxes in Nigeria, but we also know that administration is bedeviled by corruption in tax administration. So there has to be a commitment also by government to ensure that we remove the corruption, that we fight it and reduce it. Now, if we are able to reduce it, there will be more money that the state government or the federal government can see coming in. That is one aspect that is very key. Now, then the second one is that if we are able to also broaden our tax net and all of the monies coming, those who are supposed to pay tax, if they are actually paying tax, we focus on the informal sector, ensure that they are, they are also within the tax net and they pay. That will solve the aggregate amount of money that that's available, that is received from taxpayers. That could also ease some of the burden or perhaps the anxiety of the state governments or federal.
Okay, Professor Ige Bolodeku, we're running out of time. Of course, this is a continuing conversation. As Olumide Esan said, elimination of multiple taxes is going to be a journey. The first steps to take on that journey will become clearer maybe in the coming weeks and coming months following a declaration by the new president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, that they will look into that. I'm sure that a lot of thinking, a lot of interactions would take place in order for us to have a much more conducive environment for businesses and individuals to go about without the overhang of the multiplicity of taxes. On which note, we'd like to thank all our guests who've been with us this morning. From Lagos, via Zoom, we're joined by Professor Ige Bolodoku, Dean, Faculty of Law, University of Lagos. Prof, thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right, here in the studios, we had Olumide Esom, Head Tax, Oil and Gas at Deloitte. Olumide, we appreciate your comments.
My pleasure, sir.
Dr. Kennedy Iwundu, Chairman, Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, Abuja District. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
And of course, last but not the least, Mohammed Lawal Abubakar, who is the Coordinating Director, Office of the Executive Chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service. Thank you for being our guest.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, so that's